Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Stories That Inspire Us podcast. Obviously, I have an amazing guest on today. Before I introduce my guest, I just want to say at a very young age, this amazing woman, amazing entrepreneur, really it took something upon herself to really look at unrealistic dreams. So the question that I have for everyone before I introduce my amazing guest, do you have a big, crazy, unrealistic dream and you want to make it a reality? Well, I'm so excited to introduce and welcome to the Stories podcast, the amazing Jaclyn Gallo. Welcome to Stories.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, you are so welcome. So Jaclyn, as I said, a very young entrepreneur. You are the CEO of Clarity in Action Consulting, which is a women's empowerment company on a mission to help those women who have those big, crazy, maybe to them it's an unrealistic dreams, but make it to become a reality. Wow. How did you get started with all of that?
It's a fun story. So I had a dream that is not my dream now. I had what I thought was my dream. And it's really interesting how sometimes we can create something in our head that we think we want, but if we've never lived it and experienced it, we really don't know what we want. And that is part of the process, is finding clarity on what exactly we want, which is why that's part of the name of my company. Because I thought I had that clarity, but I actually didn't. So my dream when I was in college was to land a job at a large corporation and work in marketing. And I landed an internship and I was like, this is it. This is the dream. I was so excited about it. And while I enjoyed it, something was missing. I knew that this couldn't be it. There was a teeny piece that just felt like it was missing. And I didn't know what the piece was. I didn't know how I was going to fill that piece. But I thought, well, I might as well try, because I don't want to go my whole life feeling this way, feeling like something's missing. That's not fun. So when I was starting my senior year of college, I decided that I was going to start a business. But I didn't have any business ideas. I just felt like maybe being an entrepreneur would be that missing piece, because I really love going after my goals and kind of being the one to decide and be on the forefront and be the visionary. So long story short, I wrote down business ideas in a notebook every day. I decided to pursue one after about 30 days of writing down ideas. And it was this product. It totally failed. I spent $10,000 on inventory. No one wanted it except my friends and family members. I stored the inventory in my grandmother's garage for many years. And then finally, I donated the inventory to those who are in need. And it was really hard. It was really hard to fail. It was really hard to feel like I put myself out there. I went for this thing that I thought I wanted, that I did want, and it just didn't work. Was I not good enough? Was something wrong with me? Was this not meant for me? Did I make the wrong choice? I questioned myself a lot, but I decided to give it a second try. I thought, well, you hear the stories of failure, of Michael Jordan being cut from his 9th grade basketball team and Walt Disney getting fired at 23. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I can try again. Maybe this doesn't mean anything. So I tried again. And this time I tried to build an app. I raised $20,000 on Kickstarter because I was completely out of money. And I took that $20,000 and hired college student developers because that was all I could afford. Even though I thought $20,000 was so much, it really wasn't in the world of hiring app developers. And the app also totally failed. So now I am 2.5 years out of college and living home with my parents, absolutely no money, 2 failed businesses, now really feeling like I think I am the problem. I don't think it's the idea. I don't think it's the normal part of success. And what I was missing in the literature around failure is that failure isn't just something that some successful people experience, but then they can create success after. Failure is the thing that creates the success. And no one talks about it enough. They talk about it in a way that's like, oh, I did fail before I was successful, so it's normal to fail. But they don't explain that the exact lessons that you learn in your failures are the very keys that you need to learn to create your success. And so I almost gave up when I had this roadmap to success right in front of me, to everything I wanted. I had learned all of the lessons, yet here I was not understanding that that was right in front of me. And that was the closest I ever was to giving up. I remember actually like pulling up job applications and working on my resume. And then I thought, something's missing. Like I can't go back to that. I knew that I wanted to pursue this path, and I will get there as long as I keep going. The only true failure is giving up. So I kept going, and I found my way to speaking, and I just loved it. I found something that I really loved to do, and that came really naturally to me. But at first I thought, well, what am I going to speak about? Because I'm a failure. And then I realized, well, maybe I could talk about failure, because a lot of people really are missing that piece. And a lot of people are so afraid to fail. And once they've failed once, they won't even put themselves out there again. Yet here I am, I failed twice, and I'm on my third try, and I'm still putting myself out there, and I'm still going for it. And so that's how I started speaking. And that was back in 2018. I gave my first speech. And since then, the message has continued to grow and evolve, and really just focus on helping people reach their full potential, because that is fulfillment. Fulfillment is doing it for yourself, doing it for what you know you're capable of. It's not about anything else. And that was the missing piece that I had all those years ago, and that I'm still finding today, every day, and I'll never find it. And that's not to say that I don't love every day and I'm not happy. It's just that I don't think we'll ever reach our full potential. So it's a fun thing to go for and let it evolve in the different stages of life, in different areas of life. You might feel fulfilled in your career, yet you want to feel fulfilled in a different area, right? Maybe in charity and giving back, or maybe in mentorship, or maybe in becoming the best cook you can become, or whatever it is your passions are. So that's kind of me and how I got to where I am.
Wow. That is a lot. And I want to break it down a little bit. And I will just say, as kind of a sidebar, I'm not a great cook, so you don't want to come to my house for dinner. But with that being said, what you covered was so essential, and you hit it the nail on the head, because we don't talk about failure. We failed at this, and this is what we end up doing. We don't talk about it as basically in depth as the foundation for what we can learn from. Like you had two failures. Okay, the first one failed, the second one failed, but there was something within you that was deeper than, it was more of a learning experience. Like, okay, what can I learn from this failure? Where is this directing me to? And then you did your first speech in 2018. And I know, for instance, that you are a TEDx speaker. Was your TEDx event based on failure?
Sort of. So what I did was, when I gave my TEDx, I wanted to understand what kept me going and what enabled me to pick myself back up after my second failure, where so many other people who are in that position who failed multiple times at something give up. What about me was different, and how can I bottle that up and give it to others? So what I did was I went back and I read my old journal entries, which is so cool that I still had these. If you ever journal, highly recommend keeping them and being able to go back and read where you were. And I found an entry from the day that I was really seriously considering giving up. It was so long. It was filled with so much pain. But something I found really interesting about it was, throughout the pain, there was another theme, and it was hope. Every few sentences, I would say something like, I don't know if I can do this, and I really want to give up on my dreams, but deep down, I think I can be successful. Something to that extent was phrased into every few paragraphs of this journal entry. And I realized that I had created courage within myself to pick myself up and keep going despite the failures. And so my TED Talk is called The Courage Equation. And I believe that courage is the result of having a little bit more self-belief than fear. So the equation is courage equals belief greater than fear. And in that journal entry, I had just a little bit more self-belief than I had fear. And so then I go on in the talk to explain different ways to build your self-belief. And so it's really about not just why failure is important, but if you are then going for the things and failing, what do you need inside of you to help you actually create success? Because it's one thing to just put yourself out there, go for things and fail. But if you just give up, then it doesn't really help you. You don't learn the things, you don't get closer. So it's about that courage and building that self-belief so that you can have the courage to keep going.
So would you say then, based on what we've just chatted about, it sounds like to me, those failures were your foundation, and that entry led you to the courage equation. Like, I just feel that.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. When you started your business and you have clients coming to you who, and I would assume some of them perhaps are at that breaking point. We all feel that breaking point where, like, okay, I gave myself 6 months to really get my shite together and work on this wholeheartedly. I know I worked on it hard, but it's not going the way they want. You happen to go back to your journal entry. What would be something that you would say to someone listening or viewing this podcast who feels that same way?
Yeah. So there's a difference between what I call like emergency medicine and preventative medicine. And I'm using the metaphor of doctor's visits for resilience and courage here. So there's a different type of action you're going to take when you are building up resilience over time, preparing for inevitable ups and downs that, first of all, even if you're not pursuing any dream or any goal in life, you will face. And second, if on top of just living, you are also pursuing something that is important to you, you will most definitely face those ups and downs. So that's one part of resilience that we can talk about. But the part that you're referencing is that person who's really down, who's really low. And this is a totally different toolkit that you're going to tap into, right? It's just like, are you going to go to the emergency room? Or are you just going to go see your primary care physician for a yearly checkup, right? It's very different. So when I was in that emergency room, I wanted to figure everything out and pick myself back up, but I felt absolutely terrible. I felt like I was a victim of my life. I felt like other people had it easier than me. I felt like nothing ever works for me. I mean, I was in the worst mindset I've ever been in my entire life. And I am sure that some of you listening can relate to that mindset, can relate to pieces of that mindset, have been there before, and maybe even are there now. And something that really helped me at the time was understanding Abraham Hicks' emotional guidance scale, which is a scale of our emotions from very low level emotions to very high level emotions. The low level ones are those ones that I was experiencing, victimhood, depression. The high level ones are the ones I wanted to experience: hope, happiness, joy, gratitude, right? And then there's a range of emotions in between. There's things like acceptance, boredom, that start to bridge that gap. And what Abraham Hicks talks about is that it's almost impossible to climb from a very low level emotion to a very high level emotion. So what is easier is to slowly climb the scale one emotion at a time. So you might still be in a negative emotion, but it's actually a higher vibration negative emotion than victimhood or depression. So you might just feel annoyed, right? Does annoyed feel lighter, then I'm a victim. Probably, right? So what I did was I asked myself, how can I start with where I am and just get one step better? Just feel one step lighter. I don't have to solve all my problems. I don't have to have it all figured out. I just want to get one step in the right direction. So I did the most basic things in the world. I did my laundry. I took a shower. I ate food that would feel supportive to me and healing to me. Then after a day of that, I moved on the next day to doing some journaling, just writing about how I was feeling, releasing some of my feelings. Then a day after that, I started to write about what are some possible directions I could go next, given what's happened. And I was moving up that scale. Now I was at acceptance. Where could I go? Because this did happen. And then with acceptance, I was able to get to a more hopeful state and just slowly climb that scale. So it's about knowing yourself and knowing what works for me. Moving my body always helps me. Eating foods that fuel my body always helps me. Journaling always helps me. Meditating always helps me. Spending time with loved ones always helps me. Sometimes watching comedy helps me, right? Like different things I just know are supportive for me. So you have to look inward and say, what is supportive for you? And what is that emergency medicine? And start there. And then when you get to a more neutral place, that's when you will want to implement more of the daily habits, which could overlap, right? Like exercise is a daily habit for me, but it's also something I especially do when I'm down, right? Maybe I've already worked out that morning, but I'm going to go for an afternoon walk because I'm down, versus my daily habits of building resilience include exercise. So some of them may overlap, but some of them may be different. And so that's when you want to go into more of that like preventative medicine so that your low just doesn't drop as low because you're more resilient. Does that make sense?
Yes, I totally relate to what you're saying on so many different levels. And I always relate back to when my son had his accident, because that was a very poignant part of my life, not only, of course, as a mom, but as an entrepreneur. And I look back at where, for instance, as an entrepreneur, being a VA, where my business was at that time, was booming. But then after Ryan's accident, I questioned everything I was doing and how I was doing it. And I think that is so relatable, because when you were talking about the victimhood part of it, I don't like to call myself a victim. The accident did not happen to me. It obviously happened to my son, but as his mom, I felt that pain and anguish. And you were just talking about acceptance. And hopefully, I feel that what I'm trying to say is I'm at that acceptance point, because it obviously was, not only trauma for my son, but when I finally said to myself, the other day, like I was traumatized by everything that transpired. Everything changes, but what you're keying into also is the self-care aspect of it, allowing yourself, is it an emergency or is it a preventative? And, thank you so much for really sharing those words of wisdom, which are so important to so many people out there who are looking to maybe do something different, maybe step out of their comfort zone, whatever's happening in their lives, that they can share their story, that they can build upon being an entrepreneur, knowing that, there will be ebbs and flows with it. And speaking of ebbs and flows, Jaclyn, best-selling author, what is the name of your book?
I've written 2 books. My first book is called The Cuss Method. I wrote it while I was in college, actually my senior year, when I was starting that first business. And it was about my struggle with disordered eating in college. And my second book is called Stop Getting in Your Own Way. And I wrote that in 2019. So at the very end of 2019, I wrote it when I had sort of had my comeback, I guess you could say, from the failure. And I really picked myself up and changed my life. And I thought, holy crap, my whole life changed so quick. 1 year. Like I went from that low place to wow, like I really did it. Like I'm living this dream. I've created so much success for myself at such a young age. How could you go from this to this? And I thought it was my mindset and it was my habits. Those were the two key things. And so I wrote about those things and Stop Getting in Your Own Way. And I'm currently writing my third book. And it's a lot about the stuff we're talking about right now, about continuation of mindset, courage, and just really how people can rewire their brains so that they, instead of just having like new beliefs they can instill, they can actually understand the process of forming a new belief so they can achieve anything they want in life.
And isn't that the beauty of what you do? Because as I'm looking at all the notes that I've taken so far, and obviously I've read your bio several times, you took your pain and turned it into a purpose, which is fueling you, that started your business. And of course, your podcast, Spark Your Light podcast. That is amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. Well, my goal is to be that spark for people. Motivation is something that's really interesting. A lot of people talk about it like it's something that some people have and other people don't. And usually it's themselves that they're referring to as other people. Like, Jaclyn, you're motivated. You wake up at 5:20 a.m. and go to a 6 a.m. workout class and you chase your dreams and you do all these things. But I wasn't born with that gift. I'm not like that. I'm not like you. And I completely disagree with the notion that motivation is something that we're born with or we're born without. I believe motivation is like food. We must feed ourselves 3 meals a day or we will be hungry. And we must feed ourselves motivation every day. And there's various ways to intake that motivation. And you can find what works for you and what inspires you and what motivates you and really get clear on that and implement that into your habits and routine. And one of the ways is consuming it. One of the ways is listening to things like podcasts that really do spark your light. So I want everyone who listens to feel sparked. I want it to be a source of motivation as well as education, to really help people achieve all that it is they want to achieve and create lives that they genuinely love, because we all deserve that.
We certainly do. And what would you say? Let me rephrase that. Routines are very important to you, correct?
Yes.
When you start a routine, because I think this is really critical, we always talk about routines. How do you book your day? In other words, some people like to write, like you mentioned, you wake up at 5:20 a.m. Do you structure your day like that? You know what you're doing 1 hour to the next?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. And some things work for some people and some things work for others. I've tried a lot of things, and this is what works for me right now. And I always like to describe my life in seasons, because it really has been like what worked for me 2 years ago isn't what worked for me right now. And it probably won't be what works for me 2 years from now, because you have different goals, you have different focuses. So I just want to preface it and say, like, wherever you are, evaluate what is most supportive for me during this season. So for me, the thing that I find is most supportive is to have a pretty set in stone morning routine, like doing the same things every day, at least on the work days, because there are things that I know motivate me. So we're talking about feeding ourselves that motivation. So for me, I love going to morning soul cycle. I love like doing a really tough workout that physically challenges me. I feel so lit up after I do it. It is just like the fuel for my workday. And then I also am a big aesthetic person. I'm into the environment that really influences my energy. So I love going to Starbucks, getting myself a coffee, doing work from a place where there's kind of like a hustle and bustle and other people working. I just love that. And so that is my morning routine. And I also journal every morning. So the first thing I do after my workout, when I get to Starbucks, is I do a morning journaling routine, which includes gratitude and affirmations and then daily intentions. So my intentions is sort of like my agenda for the day. And I have learned that it's really important for me, and I believe for most people, to be the kind of person who does the things I say I'm going to do. Because if I can't trust myself, then there's no point of working on myself. There's no point of setting goals. There's no point of going to conferences or listening to podcasts because I can't trust myself that I'm going to do those things. And so in order to build that self-trust, I've had to really evaluate how many things are on my to-do list, because in the past, I would make it impossible to do the things I said I was going to do because there were physically too many things on my to-do list than my human energy levels would allow for. So I'm really intentional about what I put on, how many things I put on. I give myself flexibility, like maybe it's something that I want to make sure I do by Friday, but maybe I'm having a creative writing block on Tuesday and I'm not really feeling writing my weekly email to my list. And so instead, I'm going to write it on Wednesday. Now I plan for that. So I'm a few weeks ahead on my weekly newsletter so that I can write it any day of the week. So I have a little bit of flexibility, but I also have a lot of structure and commitment to myself and the things I say I'm going to do. But beyond the morning routine, most of my day is more fluid. That's just kind of what works for me. I have like a little bit of rigidity and then a little bit of flow, and that feels really supportive for me.
I love how you said that rigidity. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, and flow, but we all know what I'm trying to say there. And I just want to segue over to welcome all of our many listeners on the Wisdom Audio app. I see so many familiar names and faces. Thank you all so much for being here today. Jaclyn, how can our viewers and listeners get in contact with you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is Instagram. I'm at Jaclyn T. Gallo, and you can always message me.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and do the sign off on the Wisdom Audio app. Again, I want to thank all of our listeners. It's always a pleasure being on the Wisdom Audio app. And just a reminder, if you have a story to share, or if you want to go for that big goal, that big dream, that unrealistic thing, please reach out to Jaclyn. I know that she would love to help you out. My name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us, and we shall see you again real soon. Bye for now. Well, thank you so much, Jaclyn. You shared so much integral, important information in really a short amount of time. And I hope that you will definitely consider coming back. But I do have a couple final questions.
Yeah, I would be honored to come back anytime. I love this. I could do podcast episodes all day. I'm like, if that could only be my job, but I have to do so many other things.
And as I was chatting before about, my son's accident, how it changed my whole business.
Wow.
I'm now niching down even further, which I thought was impossible, doing podcasts, being a podcast business manager. And so I'm very excited about that. But the question that I have is kind of off the cuff. So you've been a TEDx speaker. What do you think the next your next engagement, what your next speech will be about?
Yeah, so I speak a lot, like my primary income stream. So it's like my consistent, and I speak on a lot of the same topics: women's empowerment, positive mindset, failure, resilience. And I'm still at a place where I am evolving, constantly taking the feedback or taking the theme. And I'm so open to it. I want every audience to feel like I wrote this speech just for them. So I don't know, it's really what my people need, I guess. And I'm just open to allowing it to unfold. I think it'll be in alignment with like personal growth and achieving your goals and becoming the best version of you and creating a life you love. Maybe just a different take on that. And as I grow, like I share, so um as my life evolves, as I start a family and, different stages of my life, I think it will continue to evolve. And I'm really grateful to just have people who just want to keep learning with me.
And life is a learning experience, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of curves along that windy road. I can't thank you enough for being my special guest today on Stories That Inspire Us. We're definitely going to book you sometime in 2023. And I just want to remind everyone, if you have a story to share and you're not sure how to go about it, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help you share your story on Stories That Inspire Us, because today I truly was inspired by this young woman, Jaclyn Gallo. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.